Hello, and thanks for joining me for this little journaling class. Journaling is something that I've been doing since I was 11 or 12 years old. Really 12, I remember it being super important for me to have a journal, and I looked at it as a companion. It was a challenging time in my life, and I liked to write poetry, but I was also pretty shy about it. It wasn't something that I talked about or shared with anyone. It was just for myself to release emotions. And so I had a journal, and I've always had one since. I've always had a journal going. And some years it's harder to write than others. Some days, sometimes, it's an ebb and flow, just like everything else. Every other practice is an ebb and flow. And so, there were times in the past where I would go to sit down and write in my journal, and, I was not focused, or whatever it was, nothing would really come out. And that's okay. I still like having one with me. So you'll find me quite often in my house. When I leave my house, I usually have a book and a journal with me, like where I sit in the house. It'll be on the dining room table, on the couch, up near my bed. It's always there. And with this intention that I'm going to write, I'm going to read, I'm going to write. And it may or may not happen, but it's there. And so even just that gives me a sense of peace. And so my goal for this class is to offer you some suggestions about journaling and have you run with it and create this living witness, that's with you all the time. It also helps you to remember things, jot things down, use it for lists, whatever it is, whatever you use it for, it doesn't matter. That's been a misconception over the years of me teaching Reiki and yoga teacher training and meditation. I always encourage journaling, and some people are it makes them nervous to hear about journaling, and maybe you're one of those people, and that's why you're taking this class right now, is because you've heard that journaling is good for you, or someone suggested that you journal, but then when you go to do it, you're kind of blocked about it. And so I want to help you unblock that. I want to help you to feel comfortable with your journal. I want you to feel like there's no right or wrong, and I want you to feel like it's yours, it's private, it's sacred. And that's been another thing that I've heard from people, is that they're afraid that someone's going to read it. And you should, hopefully, if that's a concern for you, they have locking journals, and maybe you have a safe, or maybe there's a place that you can hide it. If that's a fear of yours, you can honor it, and you can figure out a way to still have your journal and hide it, or just always keep it with you. Keep it in your bag, keep it in your pocketbook. It doesn't have to be a big journal. This is the one that I have today. And see, it's pretty small. It fits everywhere. I could carry it everywhere I go. And there's even smaller ones. The other thing that you can do too is, if you're uncomfortable with keeping a journal because it is private, you can always throw the pages out when you're done. Because it's, I personally, I've thrown out many journals. I've burned journals in ceremony. And I've also kept journals. I enjoy looking back and reading and being like, wow, that's so interesting. That's where I was then. Wow, I wrote so much better then, or whatever, just different ways to see how life has progressed. A little reminder, because the journal is the witness to your life. So you decide, and you don't have to be set. You can always be flexible. So maybe this journal, if it's your first journal and you're uncomfortable with the feeling of having a journal, because you're worried about your privacy, just throw the pages out every time. It's a great practice of letting go and releasing. There's no obligation to go back and to read anything you ever wrote. This can just be a release. Some people use journals to detail every account that happens day to day. And that's how some people enjoy journaling. So, you know, the misconception of a journal is that you need to write and write and write about every detail of your day. For me, it's about, sometimes I just write words that come to mind. It's like just a free writing thing. It might not even make any sense. And sometimes it's just about putting a pen, a pencil, whatever medium you use to write in your journal, putting it onto paper, especially now where computers and phones, we're always typing, and we rarely put pen to paper. So putting pen to paper is cathartic. Writing a word as an intention, you know, love, I always write love. Joy, peace, even just writing those words can help me to be more present in my life. Writing it down, I can think it all day long, but it's not the same. So you physically manifest an image of these words that you want to embody. You know, that's another way. So it doesn't have to be long and drawn out at all. Excuse me. So that's a misconception. If you like to doodle, it can just be a doodle. It can be, you can start to draw images. You don't have to be an artist at all. Again, I just want you to know this requires zero creative background or artistic background. So you can just bring forth whatever imagined creativity you have to put on the pages of your journal. And those images, believe it or not, are very soothing to your psyche, to your consciousness, to your heart, to your energy. So it's like a mandala, or mandala. When you draw something, after you take a few breaths or whatever, just draw an image. Like I said, doesn't have to be anything perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. It just is whatever is coming out of you. You can spend time, if you want, gazing at that image and seeing how that makes you feel, you know, or maybe you just doodle some stuff as a release, you know, and I keep looking down at my blank page as if I'm doing it, but I can just imagine myself doing these things because I've done all these things over and over again through the years. When I've gone through an emotional time, my journal has helped. I love to write. So I write very abstract and poetic, and I write letters. I write letters to myself. I write letters to the person that I'm, you know, if I'm struggling with someone or struggling through something, and never to be given, but as a process of release. A process of processing, actually, processing things through my body, through my energy. It has helped me to gain a better relationship with myself and my emotions and my heart and my intentions as well. So during those tough times when I've used journaling, it's helped me to see the progression as well. Like I may have started in the beginning of this hard time, blaming, right? My words, if I were to write a letter to someone, it might be all blame. And then when I continue to revisit day after day or once a week or once a month, however it pans out, because there's no rules. Obviously, the more you do something, it's like flexing a muscle, it's like working out. The more you do it, the easier it feels. It just comes with more ease. It becomes your companion, you know, a little bit quicker. But anyway, to see the progression. So for me, it was like when I would write those letters, I noticed it was like blaming at first, blaming. And then, you know, in my life outside of my journal, I am working on my awareness and opening my heart and becoming or embodying love and joy and peace, while also simultaneously honoring what I'm going through, the emotions and whatnot. And so when I rewrite the letter, I notice over time there's less blaming, you know, and even to the point where I write a letter and there's no blaming, because there's so much self-awareness and my participation in whatever the conflict was or whatever it is, the unfolding of it. You know, this becomes so much self-awareness and healing and opening for different aspects, different points of views to come through, that not only do I feel calmer, better in my body, the recognition that, hey, I think this is what forgiveness is. I have forgiven myself. You know, I have forgiven that person. That almost becomes like, it doesn't even matter. If you forgive yourself, then everything is forgiven. So that's a way to process. When you're going through grief, you're able to, you know, even still, you could write letters to that person. It's a way to connect. So even if you have lost someone that you love, you can write letters to them about your love. You can write letters to them about what you're doing. You can write what your hopes and wishes are. You know, you can communicate with that person or that animal, whatever it is, whomever it is that you've lost. You can use your journal as a means of communication. And does that take, if it's not something that you're comfortable with or that you've never applied before, does that take a little bit of bravery and releasing of the ego? Of course it does, because you're like, this seems crazy, right? You might feel that way, but let that go. Who cares? Literally, it doesn't matter. Your life is yours, and it's okay to be creative, and it's okay to work through things this way. We are we're multidimensional, right? And so to use this as a means of communicating with your inner self, of releasing, of healing, of working to embody those qualities that you strive for, you know, like, do what you need to do and let it unfold how it unfolds, and don't judge yourself. Have fun, lighten up. I have a reminder in my phone every day at 10 o'clock a.m. Lighten up. I gotta remember to lighten up. That's one of my lessons. I tend to, you know, kind of overthink things sometimes, or go super deep into things with like a heavier energy. So I'm like, if I lighten up and just realize life is life, you know, I can be lighthearted as much as I can be lighthearted. And usually, even by 10 a.m. every day, I need that reminder, lighten up. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna lighten up. Okay. And I can have a better day. And I might write that in my journal, lighten up. And it feels good, because again, you're literally manifesting a thought, because you're putting it onto paper. You're manifesting a visual image of something that you want to embody. So it's another perfect way to use your journal. So I encourage you to first get a journal. Whatever suits your fancy, just make a decision. It's hard because there's a lot of cool journals out there, but just remember, it's not the only one you're going to buy. So buy 1 or 2 or 3, and you know, you can keep those aside. And maybe it's lined, maybe it's blank. You're going to test it out and see what you like better. I have bought blank page journals, like with no lines on them, and I don't like them as much. I like lines, so I guess I like a little bit more organization. But I have both going on. So I have a journal that's blank as well, that I'll write in, and it's fine. You know, I don't really feel any way, but I do like lined. You know, if I had to pick one, I would pick lined for me. Decide on the size that you like. You can even just use a notebook, you know, regular notebook. If it's hard for you to make a decision, just grab a notebook. You know, the most important thing is to not labor over anything. You can even just grab a piece of paper and start to write. And it might feel awkward. So the first thing that you can write is the date. You know, when I'm kind of like, I know I want to write in my journal, and I either have a lot that I want to write down, or I'm just like, what should I do? I'll write the date. So I start with the date, and then I might write another practice that I really like to journal is gratitude. And I mean, that started when I think I was like 13 or 14. So 1990, how old was I? 1993, 2, 3, or 4. Oprah actually started a gratitude practice. And, you know, it was like 3 things that you're grateful for every day. And I think my mom did it. And so I started doing it. That's something that I started to journal. And then as I started to learn all these other practices of yoga and meditation and Buddhism and Hinduism, gratitude is, it's just a practice in and of itself. And writing it on paper, the things you're grateful for, can really help to solidify that feeling in your body. So you hear a lot about affirmations and manifesting and things. And a lot of that is about feeling it in your body, knowing that you're grateful. And there's literally always something to be grateful for. You're here every day that you wake up. Every day that you wake up. Gratitude for that. I know life can be hard. But there's a reason why you're here, because you woke up. There is a reason why you're here. And if that doesn't work for you, gratitude toward your pet, if you have a dog or a cat or whatever kind of animal, gratitude towards something that you love. What do you love? Even if the only thing that you love is like a cheeseburger. Gratitude toward the cheeseburger. Then if you really want to break it down, I know that's super surface level, but I'm just saying, you don't have to worry about the depth. You know, you just kind of have to carve it out, slowly carve it out, carve it out, carve it out. But let me go back to the hamburger. If that's something that you enjoy, that you love, you're like, I'm so grateful that I can eat my hamburger, right? Then what goes into that hamburger, right? Obviously honoring the animal that sacrificed its life, honoring the people that created the whole entire process of the hamburger, from the growing of the wheat for the bun, right? So geez, there's so much to be grateful for just in that hamburger. And that helps you to sort of connect deeper with the different aspects of life that really bring our lives alive. Something as simple as a hamburger really can be amplified into this thing where we recognize our connection with all other beings, right? So can you see that aspect, that small aspect of writing in your journal something you're grateful for, and then reducing it, deconstructing it, what actually makes that up, and being grateful for all those things, because nothing is, like Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, nothing is, like, there's not a hamburger, like that doesn't exist in the universe in and of itself. The hamburger is made up of the sun, of the water, of the earth, of the people, right? Of the animal, of the, yeah, it goes on and on and on. And that can be used to lighten your heart, to feel connected, to recognize that there's so much gratitude to be had living on this earth, in this body, in this life. So if you can just be grateful for your breath. Well, what's connected to your breath? I'm breathing, right? I'm grateful for my breath. You're grateful for your body. You're grateful for the air. You're grateful for the earth. Every single component, your lungs, your circulatory system, your nose. Like, you know, there's so much, wow, there's so much to be grateful for. And, right, like Ram Dass used to say, there's both. Of course, there's the 10,000 horrible things in life, and then there's the 10,000 beautiful things in life. So just because, and I've heard this before, when working on gratitude or feeling good or working on yourself at all, a lot of people say, well, there's so much sorrow in the world, there's so much pain in the world. Who am I to be happy? Okay, well, let's recognize all those things, all the struggle, all the suffering, 100%. Let's not turn a blind eye toward that. Let's recognize it as part of the process as well. And let's also recognize that through this process of journaling, we can start to discover our true nature, that is our heart and our soul and our loving nature, all these things that want to come out. And as you use this tool, and maybe you find other practices to nurture those things, you become what you're meant to be, which is love, which is peace, which is joy. Therefore, contributing to the change, right? You are able to infuse yourself to some degree. Maybe you never even know how it affects the suffering, but by raising yourself up, you're part of the change, right? Be the change you want to see in the world, Gandhi. Comes from working on yourself, and journaling is a tool to work on yourself. All right, it's another aspect of it. And just like anything that's really good, it's not a magic bullet, so it takes time. It becomes part of another practice. You have to make time for it. That's probably the first thing, right? You buy the journal, then make time for it. Does not have to be long and drawn out. For me, it's when I have tea in the morning, right? I wake up, I do my morning things, I have my tea, I have my journal, I write a few things down. And not every day, you know, like I said before. This is something that should come with ease. It shouldn't feel like a job, okay? And maybe because of its benefits, at first, maybe it does feel like a job, but it's important to you, so you still make some time for it. So whether you write the date and one word down for that day, you wrote in your journal. Maybe you're inspired to write more. Maybe you read something that inspired you to put some words together that might be a poem. And it feels uncomfortable inside because it's not something you've ever done, but who cares? Leave it there anyway. You know, maybe you tear it up and throw it out. An interesting exercise. This is an easy journal exercise. And this is to increase those qualities within yourself, our original qualities of curiosity, of love, of wisdom and knowledge, and expanding our ability to not always diffuse our energy. Okay, so we might get a good idea, right? I think we all know this. You get a super good idea, you tell 30 people, and then you don't feel like implementing that idea. You get a good idea, you don't tell anyone, you implement it, and you feel amazing, right? Because nobody needs to know. Or like you do a good deed. There's something about doing a good deed because you want to. You're not looking for any recognition, and you never tell anyone, ever. Right? So that the journaling exercise is to write the most beautiful thing you've ever written. Maybe it's a letter, a love letter to yourself. Maybe it's a letter to someone you love. Maybe it's a beautiful poem. Maybe you draw a beautiful picture. Something, whatever you think is beautiful. Maybe you write about who you really think you are, what you're really meant to do. Something that really opens up your heart and makes you feel like your energy feels big and open. And then you tear it up, you burn it safely, or you throw it out or whatever, and you never talk about it. You don't tell anyone, nobody needs to know, nothing. You just allow it to expand your innate qualities of perfection and of love and of wholeness. So that's a fun journal, and that might inspire more creativity in your journal. You don't have to tell anyone about your journal. You can write prayers in your journal. If you're a Reiki practitioner, something that I do with Reiki is I love to write the symbols down in relationship. Well, sometimes I just draw the symbols. And then sometimes I draw the symbols in relationship to a prayer, whether it's for an individual or for the world or whatever. So that's a neat thing that I like to do. Another way that you can journal is if you, say you watch a documentary or a movie that your intention is to watch it consciously. So that means we're not just passively zoning out. We're actually allowing ourselves to interact with the movie or the documentary. So then you'd have your journal and you take notes on things that stand out to you. And when you take notes, you can either write down specifics. If there was like a quote in that, you can write that down, or a feeling that was brought about in you during a specific scene. You can write about those feelings. So you can consciously watch things. Same thing when you read. If you're reading a book, it can be a book about anything. It could be a story. Obviously reading evokes different emotions and feelings and thoughts and creativity and ideas. Have your journal next to you and consciously read. So as you're reading, oh wow, that's interesting. Like, I never thought about that emotion related to that. You can write it down and start to put together this thing of how you feel when you consciously watch, you consciously read. If you're thinking about, I think I already went over that actually, someone that, it doesn't have to even be in grief, but say you have children, okay? So this is a big one for me. My kids, I love my kids so much. It's ridiculous. And I cannot tell them that all the time because, it's probably a little overwhelming. I tell them that a lot, but just like my hopes and dreams for them, and the way that I feel, and little prayers about, their safety and protection and the relationships that they have and the jobs that they find and the way that their life unfolds. A journal is a great place for that. You can do that with anybody that you know. It's fun to do. Well, I say fun. It might not be fun to you. If there's someone that you're struggling with, to sit down and imagine that person as a child. And you imagine their qualities as a child, and you might write down their name, and you're noticing how you feel at the same time, and you're writing how you think they were as a child, and then you're also noticing how you feel, like I just said, and you write down those feelings. I'm feeling this way, and then maybe you notice yourself as a child with them, and do you play, and you write down those words, or maybe you draw some pictures. And there's so much going on within us at any given time. A journal is one of the most beautiful tools that we have to process, to bring into fruition. If we keep all that stuff inside of us all the time, it can build up, it can become overwhelming. A journal is a perfect place to release overwhelm and to recognize, oh boy, there's no reason for me to be that overwhelmed with this. It's like you see it on paper and you see it in real life and you're just like, oh, that's funny. That's okay. Like I got it out. You're getting it out. Venting. We call our friends to vent. You can use your journal to vent. Sometimes your friend's not always available. Sometimes you don't have friends or family or someone to vent to. Use your journal to vent to. You can be angry in your journal. It's okay. And then the next day or even later that day, you can be a different emotion. You can be you in your journal, and you can test out the variations of you without judgment in your journal. So nothing has to be concise about using this journal. You just have to start. Just put pen to paper and try different things out. Maybe you like to write with a pencil. Maybe you like to write with a pen. Maybe you like to write with markers. Maybe you switch it up. Maybe you're into finding cool things outside or in a magazine or whatever, printing stuff off from online or your phone, and you glue it in. Maybe you have more of a visual journal that way, like an imagery journal, like a collage or whatever. That's getting into like, it doesn't even have to be a vision board, or it doesn't have to be anything. Just know that and it can be something, you know, so whatever you choose is perfectly okay. And the cool thing is, if you look back and you're like, ugh, that's embarrassing, even though you're just talking to yourself, you shouldn't be embarrassed, you can get rid of it. Or if it's years later, you can laugh at it. You know, you can see your progression, and you can be like, oh, that's really cool, actually, that I did that. I forgot that I did that. I just found an old journal the other day when I got into a car accident. How many years ago was it now? 6 years ago. And I wrote down the emotions, the pain, the different, I totally forgot that I did that. And it was interesting because I had been having more neck pain the past couple months. And then I found that, and the reminders and how it connected with my business and my life at the time, and the pain that I've held in this area, that for whatever reason, obviously, there's no coincidences, was prompted by the universe to bring my awareness and to change my direction in life, how it was meant to be changed, even if I didn't know it. I had been contemplating that. So when I came back to my journal and I read what I wrote, it wasn't even a lot, it was a couple pages about my accident, where I felt the pain, the processing, whatnot, to where I am now and feeling some of that pain. I was able to recognize that and begin to work more consciously on releasing the current pain as it relates to my life and circumstances, and obviously the physical pain too, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. So that was pretty healing to be able to go back and see that. So that was just, you know, another instance of using my journal. I used it a lot way before my divorce, but when things were getting hard throughout the divorce, I went through a time where I couldn't even pick up my journal because my mind was all over the place. So I did pick it up. I wrote a word here or there. All my practices were they felt pretty out of reach for a little while. So I had my internal environment, my faith that I stuck to. I've always had a practice that I go to, which might not look like anything on the outside, but it's everything to me. It's my thread. There's always a thread, okay? But to read and go back and see the progression with that and what I worked through and how I went through it, you know, that's really interesting. And again, a witness to my life, things that I had totally forgotten. I'm like, oh, wow, you are strong, you know, like you are brave. And then now, like, to embody, for me, a journal allows me to really embody my life, right? To be in my life, because like I said, you know, I'm going to reiterate, computers, phones, type. Putting pen to paper, there's something that happens there. If you have a job or you have a business, it's also helpful with that. It's helpful to write down, you know, to get out of like the rat race, right? You want to get out of that rat race mind and get into a more creative space where you write things down that inspire you. Words, you find quotes, like I said, consciously watching even a TV show, a movie, reading a book, listening to someone that you love. It could, you know, a friend, whatever. And it something sparks something in you. You write it in your journal, and then that sparks more. There's also a form of journaling that is automatic. Automatic journaling, automatic writing, where you just is completely free flow. So who knows what's going to come out? It does not matter. And you just write and you let the words flow. And it feels weird. You know, a lot of this might feel weird, but like I said before, who cares? Be weird. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just be weird. And be the you that lives inside of you that you hide away because you're trying to fit into some other box. Get out of that box and get into your journal. And when you free write, you just see what comes out. See what, you know, whatever. Maybe you don't even reread it, but it's just a release. You're releasing. You're writing automatically one word at a time. That's the way that it explained. Wow, that was a jumble. One word at a time. There was a tree, but you're like, you know, whatever, that I don't even know why that came out. And you keep going, and it does not have to make sense, but it probably will. It usually turns into something neat when you do that. You can draw a circle in your journal. You draw a circle, and then your job is to fill that in with little designs, with words, with whatever. You just fill in that circle, and that's kind of creating your own mandala. And when you, and it doesn't have to be intricate or detailed, but then you can meditate on that. You can breathe into it and see, you know, those are usually stabilizing images for your psyche, you know, for your heart, for your nervous system. Journaling is stabilizing for your nervous system as well. It's a routine. So like I said, start to create that routine. For me, it's a cup of tea and having my journal and my book with me. You will almost always find me with those things, not the tea, but the book and the journal all the time. Even if I don't even open the book or write in the journal, I always have them with me. How do you feel? You can write that in your journal. How do you feel? That could be your beginning prompt for your journal. How do you feel after listening to all these things? How do you feel about writing in a journal? Write it down. And then elaborate on that. Why do you feel that way? And then maybe go into gratitude. Go into something abstract. Scribble on the page. Start to dig in from your toes up through your whole body. Dig in to those emotions. Dig into your spirituality. Dig into your creativity. With no judgment, without needing to be perfect. And then see what appears on the pages. And we can talk about it. Like I said, I'm going to start our email thread with whoever signs up for the class. Even if there's just one of us, we'll be on a thread together and we can talk about journaling. We can maybe give each other suggestions or ask questions or little assignments where we, you know, put an image in there and say, let's journal about what this invokes. Go to a museum and bring your journal and look at a painting. And that was one thing we had to do in art school, was find a painting and then figure out what the artist was trying to convey. What were they thinking when they made that painting? That was fun, because you're kind of like embodying someone else's thoughts, you know, someone else's creativity. And then what does it mean to you? What do you think it means? Why did they use those colors? What was the story behind it? What do you think the artist's story was? And what is the story for you? You know, that's another thing. Go outside and observe people and write, what do you observe? How do you feel when you observe that? What do you notice about nature? You feel that interconnectedness. That journal allows us to connect with ourselves and connect with the world around us and to feel united. So even though it's a private practice, it allows us to expand who we are. And you'll see in the next video when Carrie and I, my friend Carrie and I, very similar, we both love to write, we love journaling. We're gonna have a conversation about journaling. So hopefully that inspires more. It's a little bonus for you. So this is 40 minutes. In that video, it's about 20 minutes. So a little bonus. I hope that this has broadened your journaling horizons and not overwhelmed you. Go back and just choose one thing that I talked about. But just write. Just put pen to paper. And you can, like I said, just start with the date. Start with the date. I don't even know what the date is today. So I'm going to start with the word joy. And I already wanted to write a heart after. you know, and then I might write something about my yoga schedule. And then after that, I might write a poem. I might write what I see behind my child's eyes. And this also might help me communicate a little bit better. I trust myself, right? It's another aspect of journaling. You learn to trust yourself, what you're feeling, your intuition. I look forward to hearing from you, you know, your thoughts about this little class. What else, what other questions you might have, if, you know, any questions that you have, any suggestions, offerings, feel free to relay that in the email thread. And again, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. And I love doing this. I hope that it contributes something to your life. For me, I don't know, I just love creating these videos. I love to talk, I love to share, and to feel connected. So that's where the email thread comes in, that connection. And yeah, go get your journal. Go grab a piece of paper. Start now. Namaste.